Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining today's Fit for Learning webinar. We're really excited to be here with all of you today. As you can see, we're going to be talking about the idea of navigating a major purchase. And I think that this is very much a real world topic. It's something that I think we have all done at a number of times in our life. And really what we hope to accomplish today is to help you to gain a little bit of a better understanding of some of the steps that you're going to want to take before you actually make that big purchase. And my name is Kyle Bingham. I'm the Managing Director for Financial Fitness for Life. Joining me today is Kenji Noguchi. He is one of our financial education consultants, and he's one of the individuals that is traveling throughout the country and really working with individuals and with their employers on a day-to-day basis. And so he's definitely an expert not only in helping people to navigate major purchases, but really all the different aspects of financial wellness. So for today, before we jump into the agenda, I just want everyone to take a second, and I want you to think about what was the last big purchase that you made. And again, it could be a lot of different things. There's not one individual type of purchase that we're going to be talking about today, but rather it could be purchasing a new appliance for your home. Maybe it's putting a roof on your house or replacing the air conditioning. Maybe it's buying a new car or a used car. There's lots of different types of major purchases that we're making. And I want you to think about the experience. Was it a great experience? Were you kind of neutral in everything that happened? What was it a bad experience? And what I want us to start to think about today is why was that the case? And especially if it was a overwhelming, stressful, concerning experience, I think oftentimes it's because individuals may not be following all of the steps that are required before actually making that purchase. And then for those of you that have done this and it was stress-free and it was a great experience, kudos to you on that. And I think what you'll find today is as you're walking through what we're going to be talking about today, you'll have that mental checklist and say, oh yeah, I did do this, I did do that, I did do this. And so again, for some of you, these may just be some good reminders. And then for others of you, this will be new information that you can start to apply into your lives right away. And so when you're making a big purchase, we're going to be talking about 4 questions that you want to be asking yourself. The first question is going to be, why is this something that I really need to buy? Then we'll move into how much can I comfortably afford? How am I going to pay for this? How does this impact my financial plan? What value does it add? And then lastly, what research have I done and am I getting the best price? And what you'll notice here is these are all open-ended questions, right? It's not a simple yes or no. And the reason why we've structured it that way is that as you're asking yourself these questions, you're going to really be able to kind of pinpoint maybe habits or behaviors that you have, or perhaps, maybe steps that you're missing along the way. And we're going to start to drill into those right now. So this first question, why is this something that I really need to buy right now? And I think that we've all been there where we're looking at this purchase and we have to decide, is this really an actual need? Is it just something that I want? And we have to be able to balance those two things out. With your wants, again, you're thinking about your basic items or things that you need for your day-to-day and month-to-month life, right? Things like housing and paying your utility bills and different things like that. What I always encourage a person to do as you're embarking on making a big purchase, whatever it is, there's a couple of different rules that you've probably heard before. You've got what's called a 24-hour rule, or maybe even a 72-hour rule. All that means is when you're going through this process of making a purchase, just press pause and give yourself a night to sleep on it, or even give yourself a couple of days. And again, depending upon the size of that purchase, it could be maybe one of the largest purchases that you ever made. And so I always encourage people, just press pause for a few minutes and really start to reflect on whether this is a good or possibly not a good purchase that you're making at that very time. You'll also notice too that when we're making these big purchases, we definitely have our emotions involved, right? We're emotionally charged, and being in the environment where you're making these purchases, you may have salespeople that are coming at you with different deals and features that you can add on. And again, our emotions can be heightened, and at times we can kind of lack some of the clarity that we need just to confirm that we're making that good purchase. And so I would say just press pause, understand that there may be emotions involved. We want to be able to kind of settle those emotions, settle your nerves, and then really start to dig into these other steps that we're going to be talking about today. Kenji, anything else that you would add? What else can we help people to do as they're answering this question about whether this is a need or not?
Well said, Kyle. Well said. It's, what actually is a need or a want, right? And we have to decide that. It's really going to be up to you, but majority of the time, right, needs are things that are going to typically get us instant gratification, where in the long run, it might not. I see it often where, maybe sometimes give you folks an example here. Well, hey, we all want to lose a little bit of weight. Maybe we get on a weight loss journey, we get spiked up and say, hey, let's go buy that Peloton, and we have to think about it where, maybe we'll use it the first couple months. What's the long term of that nature? Is it something you really need to buy now? And as we think about those steps ahead, is it going to affect my financial plan or whatever type of goal that I've set for myself? It helps a lot, right? When you think about a need, maybe if you're living in Arizona, your AC goes out. Well, I classify that maybe as a need, but maybe you're traveling somewhere else and say, hey, do I need to go get the really extravagant hotel, or do I need to go get a new car just because mine is 2 years old? You really have to ask yourself those things. And really, again, best suggestion is take that 24-hour rule. I always like to give myself 72 hours to say, hey, I really actually might need this. A lot of the times we're only human, and those emotions might blur our clarity a little bit, and we might make impulse buys or just make wrong decisions too quickly. So that's all I'll add there for us.
Yeah, great. No, I think that's definitely helpful, Kenji, and I think that we've all been in that position before. So now, as we kind of move on into this next question, we have to start to peel back some of the layers of the decision, right? And I think one of the most logical things that we can do is to be able to kind of start to think about how much am I able to comfortably spend, right? And then really probably one of the biggest questions is, how exactly am I going to be able to pay for it? So Kenji, why don't you walk us through a little bit about that? How does a person approach that, figuring out how much they can actually spend and how they decide on how they're planning to finance that purchase?
Sure. And it really comes down to two ways, folks, right? Do I have the cash to pay for this, or am I taking debt, right? Am I using my credit card or other avenues where you can actually do it? And a lot of the times, we'll take it back to basics. If you sit down with someone like myself or even Kyle, anyone on our team, we go back to the drawing board and we say, hey, we got to look at our budgets. And if you've been a part of our past webinars and maybe have talked with us before, one thing that we really like and utilize is a 50-30-20 rule. Again, for those 50% of your budget should go to your needs, 30% to your wants, and 20% towards your saving. So if you're following a strategy like that, you might already have a dedicated bucket or, a specific account where you can use that. And really, I think it's very logical. Most people would say, well, hey, if you have the money, let's pay it with cash, right? Why take on extra debt? Why use a credit card? Interest is there. It's all real stuff, folks. So again, a lot of the times we like to use the budgeting. If you can afford it with cash, do so. You're typically better in the long run. But beyond that, one thing that a lot of folks will ask me is, well, hey, I'm going to the Bash Pro shops. I'm looking at a new fly rod and reel, Kenji. I have the money now. They're going to offer me a new credit card, 0% APR. Why shouldn't I do that, right? Where I have the money and I can just make periodic payments towards it. Well, not saying it's a bad decision. A lot of the times though, folks, again, we're only human. Emotions get the best of us when we see those things. And, walking out, you might see a new rain jacket as well, where those things add up, where maybe you're using a little bit more than that actual allocated cash. And again, does it make sense to take that debt obligation when you have the cash? Likely not. Scenarios differ. Maybe for a major purchase like a home, maybe it does make sense, right? You put a little bit of cash down, you take the mortgage. Maybe with the auto loan, maybe you put a little bit down, you take the auto loan. A lot of these other things are going to be some of those more personalized, items that you want to spend on, whether it's expensive or not. The same rule applies, right? Can I actually afford it? Am I dedicating, a partial amount of my budget towards that goal? And keep in mind of the long-term goal too. And, I know Kyle will touch on that just a little bit here. But beyond that, is there anything else that maybe you can add, any tips or pointers?
Yeah, I think that the guidance that you gave on the 50-30 budget, that's great, because that can help you to see how easily you would be able to add an additional payment into your budget without it disrupting your other expenses that you have every month. And so I think that's a really good rule. You alluded to it a few moments ago, and I want to just hit on it for just a second too. You talked about instant gratification. You've heard me talk about it, us talk about it throughout the year, that it's so easy to make these purchases, especially with a line of credit. And there's lots of promotion that goes into that. And again, I think that's part of why, when you're in that position and when you have the ability to basically just click a button and then now you've made that purchase, you've opened up a line of credit or you've added to that line of credit, that goes back to that first step, right? Of before you make that decision, just press pause, wait 24 hours, 48, 72 hours before you finalize that decision. And I think that again can help us to be able to separate ourselves from kind of being in this instant gratification world and allow us to make sure that it fits within our budget, that we're paying for it in the right way, that we're not just continuing to take on more and more and more debt. And so that kind of leads us into another important piece, which is what's happening now with your actual financial plan. And again, your budgeting and how you're managing your cash flow is a very important part of your financial plan. But now I want you to take another step back and look at the broader picture. So we have to prioritize all of our financial goals. And as you've heard also throughout our webinars throughout the year, certain things that we want to prioritize. We want to be prioritizing high interest debt. So as you're starting to look at making major purchases, we want to make sure, well, have we gotten rid of any of that bad debt or any of that high interest debt, right? That's going to be a very important priority as we're looking at our bigger financial plan. We also have to think about, have we built up our emergency fund, or are we building up our emergency fund? Are we saving for retirement? And that may be as simple as, starting with the goal of making sure that you're getting your full company match. And these are some of those longer term goals that all of us have that are going to span over a period of several decades. I bring that up to say that you have to ask yourself, well, as I take on an additional purchase, especially in the event that you are taking on additional debt and you're now adding an additional monthly payment, how is that disrupting some of those other higher priority financial goals that you have? Now, are you not able to contribute to your emergency fund? Or maybe now you're not able to continue to increase your contributions to your 401k 1% each year. So we have to look at that bigger picture. And then when we're looking at adding value, I think one way that we can look at this, when you're making these bigger purchases, ask yourself about what type of asset is it? Is it a depreciating asset? Is it an appreciating asset? That can be a pivotal point that you're going to want to look at, again, as you're looking at your broader financial plan. And listen, I'll be the first to tell everyone, I think that everyone is entitled to be able to have the opportunity to not only meet their needs, but to be able to have those wants and to pursue those things. And so it's not to say that making these purchases, especially if it may be a want, that it's a bad thing. It's just making sure that you're able to actually fit that into your overall financial plan without too much disruption. And I think another really simple example that we can think about too, going back to Kenji's analogy about, purchasing, a new piece of surf equipment, whether it be fishing or anything like that. We want to make sure that if we do have cash on hand, that it's coming out of the right bucket of money, right? And I can see at times where people, they know they've got that emergency fund money sitting over there, and they dip into that, to be able to cover the cost of one of those wants that they have. And again, as we know, that's not really what the emergency fund is used for. So sometimes you can see where we're kind of pulling money from the wrong place. And so just like we have to make sure that it doesn't negatively impact our financial plan, we want to make sure that we're using the funds the right way. And is it truly emergency? Is it a need? Then yeah, absolutely, that would be justified to be able to take that out of your emergency fund. But if it's one of those wants, like we want to either make the decision to say, okay, we're going to obtain financing, but we know it's going to fit into our budget, or we say, you know what, I want this, but I'm going to set a goal to save up for that purchase over the next 1, 2, 3 months, or however long it might be. And Kenji, as we kind of move into this last question, Kenji, I'll kick it back over to you. So let's talk a little bit about researching your purchases, getting the best price. What are some different things that folks should be cognizant of as they're doing this?
Yeah, all good stuff, Kyle, on that last slide too. And I really think it's almost asking yourself, hey, am I just trying to keep up with the Joneses here, right? Again, going back, is it a need or is it a want? And I think that first step where we suggest, right, give it 24 hours, 72 hours, press that pause button is really going to help you as you go through this process, right? Some folks might say, well, hey, everyone's buying houses right now, I need to buy a house, or everyone's having kids now, we need to have kids. So whatever it may be, have you done enough research to say, is this something that I absolutely need, or I just really want to keep up with the pace of others? So, when you're doing research, all those different things, we always say go shopping. It's always fun saying that because it gives us a little spike of serotonin almost to look at deals. Hey, am I getting the best rate? Am I going to the right places? Used market, do I have to buy something brand new? What steps are you taking to ensure that you're getting the best deal, but also, not going to take a step back from your overall plan that Kyle discussed, right? That's the biggest thing I see all the time of using the emergency fund to pay, using the credit cards. Just because you have the ability to pay for the thing, does that make it right? Now, there's not a cookie cutter answer. Majority of the time it's no. Well, hey, if I have the cash or if I stay disciplined and I budget up to it, it gives you more time to find better deals as well. So I want everyone to take away from that of, do I need it now? Do I need it immediately? Can I give it some time? Do I have a game plan? Am I using the 50-30-20 budget rule? Am I getting myself on the right foot just so, you don't find yourself taking 3 steps back and 1 forward?
Exactly. That's great, Kenji. And I think one other thing here that comes to mind when we're talking about research, we have so much information at our fingertips now, more so than ever. There's a lot more transparency when it comes to finding the best price and making sure that you're in a position where you're getting that fair market value and you're getting that fair price. And so use that as an opportunity to make sure that you're comfortable with the price and to kind of give you that confidence. One other point that I think it's important to make here, and I know I've experienced it, Kenji, I'm sure you have too, it's this idea of buyer's remorse, right? Where we're in the moment and we're looking at this item, this big purchase, we end up making that purchase, and then what happens? Then it loses its luster. It may be a couple days, it may be a couple weeks. And I think we've all been there, right? Where it's like, man, that was probably not the best decision that I could have made. And I bring that up to tie this back to this idea of research and making sure that you understand the product, the goods and the bads of it, and making sure that once you've made that decision, that you're not going to be in a position where you're going to revisit that decision and say, man, I really just should have taken a little extra time. I really wish I would have just pressed pause for a moment, settle my nerves and my emotions a little bit before finalizing that decision. And so I know we've kind of gone through a lot here, and I want to pull us back to, what does that framework look like? If you're right now on the cusp of getting ready to make a major purchase, go back to that first question. Do I really need this right now? Okay, and take the time to look at your needs versus your wants. Understand what emotions might be coming into play right now. Use that 24-hour rule. Consider some of your alternatives. Maybe I don't do it now, but maybe I wait 6 months, or maybe I really don't need this at all right now. Then you move into making sure that you can actually afford that. Review your budget, the 50-30-20 budget. It's a great way to give you some initial framework. This also is a good opportunity for you just to go back and make sure that you're managing your spending effectively. Then we go into, now let's look at our larger financial plan. Let's make sure that that fits within that plan, that it doesn't disrupt the other financial goals that we've set for ourselves. We're still building an emergency fund. We're still saving for retirement, and we're still paying down debt. And again, it's not necessarily a bad decision or wrong decision to make that purchase. We just want to make sure that at the end of the day, hopefully it can have a positive impact. I think another thing that we find oftentimes with major purchases, and this goes into the research, but we also sometimes forget to look at, what does it take to keep this product or whatever it is that you've purchased? What does it take to keep it running? What type of maintenance is involved? Again, is it an appreciating asset? Is it a depreciating asset? Those are additional costs outside of whatever that monthly payment might be, or even if you're paying out of pocket every month, you may now have another additional expense for maintenance, upkeep, and things like that. So that's another way that you can kind of look at, how is that impacting your broader financial plan. And then lastly, comparison shop. Is it the right time to buy? The very kind of common analogy or example that's out there is buying a car, right? At the beginning of the month, the car dealer or the salesperson is going to be more focused on trying to maximize the amount of profit that they're making. But then on the flip side, when they're getting to the end of the month, right, they've got to meet quotas. And so now they're more focused on sell. So that's just another example of you also understanding the market that you're in. And when you're making that purchase, that you're making it at the right time, that ultimately is going to help to give you the right price. So Kenji, I'll just kick it back to you. Any final thoughts on any of these action steps or any other tips that you might recommend for folks as they kind of embark on their next big purchase?
Really, I think more just a philosophy, if you would, here, Kyle. But, again, Kyle and I, we're not saying don't go buy those things. We're advocates for you living your life, enjoying your life, but we have to take care of business first. And if we do that, well, awesome. Let's go through these steps and let's not lose sight of the greater goal that you might have, right? Whether it's retiring early, taking a family trip, et cetera, whatever it is, we want you to do those things, but we want you to do it with the right mind, a clear head on your shoulders. So follow these steps. If you have any questions, have us review, schedule a meeting. We're always happy to discuss and really, really set a game plan to get you down the home stretch.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Kenji. Very, very well said. And so as all of you know, you have the ability to sit down and have a conversation with one of our educators, with one of our consultants. If you're getting ready to make a major purchase and you'd like to walk through this with somebody, feel free to take a moment and schedule a one-on-one meeting. You can scan that QR code right there with your phone, and it'll pop up a schedule and you can set some time. And again, if there's other things now that maybe are on your mind that you're thinking about as a result of walking through what we talked about today, again, anything financial wellness related, personal finance related, we're more than happy to sit down and have that conversation with you. And with that, just a reminder, as we're going to be moving into July, we're going to jump into this idea of exploring credit scores, talking about a little bit more about what they are, how they work, why they're important, things that you can do to improve those scores. So if you haven't registered for July's webinar, please feel free to do so. You will also be receiving a follow-up email after we've ended the webinar today. It will have a link to our page that is going to allow you to go back and watch this recording, and also it can give you an opportunity again to sit down and set an appointment with us if you'd like to do so. And with that, I just want to thank you all for taking a little bit of time out of your day to be here. As always, best of luck to each and every one of you. We're happy to help in any way that we can, and have a wonderful summer and wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.